The sound of my phone ringing cut through the apartment like a knife. I was standing in our bedroom, soon to be just my bedroom, for 2 weeks at least, surrounded by piles of sundresses, swimsuits, and sandals, trying to decide what to pack for our honeymoon in Santorini. The wedding had been perfect. Absolutely perfect. Just 48 hours ago, I'd walked down the aisle toward James, the man I'd loved for 5 years, and promised to spend the rest of my life with him. Now, we were supposed to leave for Greece in exactly 12 hours. Our flight departed at 6 a.m. tomorrow morning, and I was doing that thing I always do, waiting until the last possible moment to pack, then panicking about whether I had everything I needed. I glanced at my phone screen. Unknown number. I almost didn't answer. Probably a spam call, or maybe a vendor calling about wedding stuff that was already over and done with. But something made me pick up. Hello. Is this Emma Hartley? A woman's voice, professional, careful. Yes, this is she. Well, actually it's Emma Richardson now. I just got married. I couldn't help the smile in my voice. I was still in that blissful newlywed phase, where I wanted to tell everyone about my new status. There was a pause on the other end. A pause that went on just a bit too long. Mrs. Richardson, my name is Detective Sarah Chen, with the Seattle Police Department. I'm calling about your husband, James Richardson. The sundress I'd been holding slipped from my hands and pooled on the floor. My heart started pounding so hard I could hear it in my ears. What about James? Is he okay? Was there an accident? Your husband is physically unharmed, Mrs. Richardson. But I need you to come down to the precinct as soon as possible. There's been a situation. A situation? What kind of situation? Where is James? We are supposed to leave for our honeymoon tomorrow morning. I understand that. But this really can't wait. How soon can you get here? My mind was racing, trying to make sense of this. James had gone to his best man's apartment for one last guy's night before we left for Greece. They were supposed to be watching basketball and eating pizza. What could possibly have happened that required the police to call me? I can be there in 30 minutes, I said, already grabbing my purse and car keys. But please, can you at least tell me what this is about? You're scaring me. Another pause. Then, your husband has been arrested, Mrs. Richardson. For embezzlement and fraud. I really think it's better if we discuss the details in person. The world tilted sideways. I gripped the edge of the dresser to steady myself. That's impossible, I heard myself say. There must be some mistake. James is a financial advisor. He helps people plan for retirement. He wouldn't. Please come to the precinct, Mrs. Richardson. We'll explain everything. She gave me the address and hung up before I could ask any more questions. I stood there for a long moment, phone still pressed to my ear even though the line had gone dead, staring at the half-packed suitcase on our bed. Our honeymoon bag. The bag that was supposed to carry sundresses and romance novels and a new bikini I'd bought specifically for this trip. The bag that represented the beginning of our new life together. Instead, I was driving to a police station to find out why my husband of 2 days had been arrested. The precinct was exactly like every police station you've seen in movies, fluorescent lights, beige walls, the smell of bad coffee and stress. Detective Chen met me in the lobby. She was a woman in her early 40s with kind eyes and a no-nonsense demeanor. Mrs. Richardson, thank you for coming so quickly. I know this must be very confusing and frightening. Let's go somewhere we can talk privately. She led me to a small interview room and gestured for me to sit. I perched on the edge of the chair, my hands twisted together in my lap. Where's James? Can I see him? In a moment. First, I need to explain the situation. Mrs. Richardson, how much do you know about your husband's work? He's a financial advisor at Prestige Wealth Management. He works with high net worth clients, helps them manage their portfolios, plan for retirement, that sort of thing. He's been there for 6 years. Why? Detective Chen pulled out a folder and opened it. Inside were what looked like bank statements and spreadsheets. For the past 18 months, your husband has been running what's essentially a Ponzi scheme. He's been taking money from his clients, telling them he's investing it in various funds and securities, and instead using that money to fund a rather extravagant lifestyle. The scheme started to unravel when one of his largest clients wanted to withdraw a significant amount for a medical emergency. The money wasn't there. That client filed a complaint, we started investigating, and everything came to light. I stared at her, trying to process the words, but they didn't make any sense. They were in English, I understood each individual word, but strung together like this, they described someone I didn't know. That can't be right, I said. James and I share our finances. I would have seen large amounts of money coming in. We live modestly. We have a nice apartment, sure, but nothing extravagant. He drives a 5-year-old Honda. I would have noticed. Mrs. Richardson, in the past 18 months, your husband has embezzled approximately $2.3 million from his clients. The number hit me like a physical blow. $2.3 million. That's no, that's impossible. Where would it even be? I just told you, we don't live like millionaires. Our wedding was nice, but not extravagant. We are going to Greece for our honeymoon, not some private island. The math doesn't add up. Detective Chen's expression shifted slightly, became more sympathetic. Mrs. Richardson, I'm going to ask you some questions, and I need you to answer them honestly. Okay. I nodded, numb. Has your husband taken any trips without you in the past 18 months? Business trips, guys' weekends, anything like that? I thought about it. Yes, of course. He travels for work sometimes. Conferences, client meetings. And he's taken a few weekend trips with his friends. Guys' golf trips, that sort of thing. Why? She pulled out more papers from the folder. These were photographs. I recognized James in them immediately, but it took me a moment to understand what I was seeing. James on a yacht. James in what looked like a luxury resort. James in a high-end restaurant, champagne in hand, surrounded by people I didn't recognize. James with his arm around a woman who definitely wasn't me. These were taken over the past year, Detective Chen said gently. Your husband has been living a double life. The money he embezzled wasn't funding your lifestyle together. It was funding a separate lifestyle, one you weren't part of. I picked up one of the photos with shaking hands. It showed James on a beach somewhere tropical, drink in hand, laughing. He was wearing swim trunks I'd never seen before. Standing next to him was a blonde woman in a bikini, her arm around his waist. Who is she? My voice came out as a whisper. Her name is Natasha Volkov. She's a model and, according to our investigation, has been your husband's girlfriend for the past 14 months. Girlfriend. The word echoed in my head. James had a girlfriend. While he was engaged to me, planning our wedding with me, promising to love only me for the rest of his life, he had a girlfriend. That's not possible, I said again, because it was the only thing my brain could produce. We got married 2 days ago. He married me. Why would he marry me if he has a girlfriend? We are still piecing together the full picture, Detective Chen said. But based on what we've learned, your husband needed to maintain the appearance of a normal life, a stable relationship, a respectable marriage, for his professional image. Meanwhile, he was spending the embezzled money on an entirely different life with Ms. Volkov. She pulled out more photos. James and this Natasha woman in Paris. In Monaco. In what looked like a penthouse apartment with a stunning view. Does he own that apartment? I asked, pointing to one of the photos. He rents it. Under an assumed name. It's where he stays when he tells you he's on business trips. I felt like I was going to be sick. Every business trip. Every conference. Every guy's weekend. He'd been with her. Living this other life. Spending millions of dollars that didn't belong to him. The wedding, I said suddenly. Our wedding. We paid for most of it ourselves. It cost about $40,000 total. James said we should keep it reasonable, save money for a house. But he was spending millions on her. It appears so, yes. I stood up abruptly, needing to move, to do something with the energy coursing through me. I need to see him. I need to talk to him. There has to be an explanation. Maybe he's being blackmailed, or someone framed him, or... Mrs. Richardson, your husband has confessed. When we arrested him this evening, he was actually at that penthouse apartment with Ms. Volkov. He'd told you he was at his best man's apartment, correct? I nodded, unable to speak. We have him on video surveillance entering and exiting that apartment dozens of times over the past year. We have bank records, emails, text messages. There's no question about his guilt. The only question now is about your involvement. My head snapped up. My involvement? You think I knew about this? I'm trying to establish that you didn't, Detective Chen said calmly. Because right now, you're legally married to a man who has committed serious financial crimes. That makes you potentially liable. Prosecutors will want to know if you were complicit, if you benefited from the stolen money, if you helped hide assets. I didn't know. I was shouting now, panic rising in my chest. I didn't know about any of this. The affair, the money, the other apartment. I thought I was marrying an honest man. I thought we were building a life together. I believe you, Detective Chen said. But I need you to walk me through your finances. Bank accounts, credit cards, any assets you own. We need to establish that you weren't benefiting from the embezzled funds. The next 2 hours were a blur. I went through every bank statement, every credit card, every financial record I could access on my phone and through my banking apps. Detective Chen was right, there was nothing unusual. James and I had a joint checking account where we deposited our paychecks and paid bills. We had a modest savings account with about $15,000 in it, money we'd been saving for a down payment on a house. I had my own checking account from before we combined finances, which I still used occasionally. James had told me he had a separate business account for work expenses, but I'd never seen statements from it because the company handles all that. Now I understood why. That business account was probably where he was funneling the stolen money. What happens now? I asked when we'd gone through everything. To me, I mean. Am I going to be arrested too? No, Detective Chen said. Based on what I'm seeing here, you appear to be a victim in this situation, not a co-conspirator. But Mrs. Richardson, I need to be honest with you. This is going to get very complicated. Prosecutors will likely seize any shared assets as part of recovering funds for the victims. Your joint accounts, any property you own together. You should speak to a lawyer as soon as possible. Can I see him now? James. She hesitated. Are you sure that's a good idea? I need to hear it from him. I need to look him in the eye and hear him tell me that everything we had was a lie. Detective Chen stood up. All right. Follow me. She led me down a corridor to another interview room. Through the window in the door, I could see James sitting at a table, his head in his hands. He looked smaller somehow, diminished. This man I'd loved for 5 years, who I'd married 2 days ago, who I'd trusted completely. Detective Chen opened the door. James looked up, and when he saw me, his face crumpled. "Emma," he said, standing up. "Emma, I'm so sorry. I'm so sorry." I walked into the room slowly, like I was approaching a stranger. In a way, I was. I didn't know this man. I'd thought I did, but I didn't know him at all. "Is it true?" I asked. My voice sounded strange to my own ears, distant and cold. "All of it. The money, the other woman, the apartment." He nodded, tears streaming down his face. "Yes. All of it. Emma, I never meant for this to happen. It started small, just borrowing from one account to cover another, and then it spiraled out of control." "How long?" I interrupted. "How long have you been with her?" 14 months. "But Emma, you have to understand, she doesn't mean anything." I laughed. It was a harsh, bitter sound. 14 months. You've been with her for 14 months. That means you were with her when you proposed to me. When we picked out my engagement ring. When we toured wedding venues. When we wrote our vows. "I love you," James said desperately. "I know you won't believe that right now, but I do love you. You're my wife." Natasha she was part of that other life, the fantasy life. "But you're real. We're real." "What about the money?" I asked. $2.3 million, James. You stole $2.3 million from people who trusted you. "I was going to pay it back," he said. "I had a plan. I was going to make some investments, recoup the losses, and put everything back before anyone noticed. But then the market crashed and everything went wrong, and I needed more time, but that client wanted his money and I couldn't." He broke down completely, sobbing. I stood there watching him cry, and I felt nothing. No sympathy, no love, no connection. 2 days ago, this man had stood at an altar and promised to love, honor, and cherish me. He'd looked into my eyes and vowed to be faithful, to be my partner, to build a life with me. Every word had been a lie. "Our honeymoon," I said quietly. "Were you actually planning to go? Or were you going to fake some emergency and go see her instead?" He looked up at me, and the guilt on his face told me everything I needed to know. "You weren't coming, were you? You were going to send me to Greece alone, or cancel at the last minute, and go be with her instead." "Emma, please. Don't," I cut him off. "Don't say my name. Don't apologize. Don't try to explain. Just answer one question honestly. Did you ever actually love me? Or was I just part of your cover? The respectable wife to make you look trustworthy while you stole millions and kept a mistress?" He was silent for a long moment. Then, quietly, "Both. I did love you. I do love you. But I also, yes, okay. Yes, you were part of maintaining the image. My boss had been making noises about promoting me to partner, but he only promotes family men, stable men. Being engaged to you, marrying you, it helped my career. It made clients trust me. But that doesn't mean my feelings weren't real." I nodded slowly. "Thank you for finally telling me the truth about something." I turned and walked toward the door. "Emma, wait. What are you going to do?" I stopped with my hand on the door handle and looked back at him. "I'm going to find a lawyer. I'm going to protect myself from the legal and financial nightmare you've created. I'm going to file for an annulment of this joke of a marriage. And then I'm going to rebuild my life without you in it. Please," he begged. "Please don't give up on us. We can get through this. I'll serve my time, I'll make this right, and then we can start over. There is no us, James. There never really was, apparently. Goodbye." I walked out and didn't look back. The next few weeks were the worst of my life. The story broke in the media, local financial advisor arrested in multi-million-dollar Ponzi scheme. My name was mentioned in some of the articles as James's wife of 3 days, when he was arrested. I had reporters calling me, showing up at my apartment, asking for comments. I hired a lawyer, an older woman named Patricia Goldstein, who specialized in fraud cases. She was expensive, but she was good, and she was the one who helped me navigate the absolute nightmare that followed. The prosecutors confirmed I wasn't a suspect, but that didn't mean I was free from consequences. Our joint bank accounts were frozen as part of the investigation. The $15,000 we'd saved together, gone, seized as potential stolen funds even though it was from our actual paychecks. I had to prove every dollar in my personal account was legitimately mine, which meant providing pay stubs and bank statements going back years. The apartment we'd rented together. The landlord wanted us out because of the media attention. I had to find a new place to live within 30 days, all while dealing with the emotional fallout of discovering my entire marriage had been a sham. The wedding gifts, we'd received about $20,000 worth of gifts, plus cash from guests. All of it had to be returned or turned over to investigators. The honeymoon we'd paid for together was non-refundable, and the deposits were considered shared marital property, so I couldn't even get that money back. I lost weight. I couldn't sleep. I cried until I had no tears left, and then I just felt numb. My family was incredible. My mom came to stay with me for 2 weeks. My sister helped me pack up the apartment and move into a small studio across town. My dad, who'd always liked James, was ready to drive to the jail and confront him, but I talked him out of it. My friends rallied around me too. My best friend Rachel organized a divorce party even though I was technically getting an annulment, not a divorce. We burned the wedding photos, ate an enormous amount of ice cream, and watched bad rom-coms while crying and laughing in equal measure. But the hardest part was the betrayal. It wasn't just that James had cheated on me or stolen money. It was that he'd made me question everything I thought I knew about love, trust, and my own judgment. How had I not seen it? How had I lived with this man, shared a bed with him, planned a future with him, and never once suspected that he was living this entire secret life? My therapist, yes, I started seeing a therapist, said I couldn't have known because James was a skilled manipulator who'd deliberately constructed an elaborate facade. She said it wasn't my fault, that I'd trusted him because he'd given me no reason not to. But still, I felt like an idiot. I felt like I should have seen the signs. And I tortured myself trying to remember if there had been warning signs I'd missed. Were there nights he'd come home late smelling slightly different? Times when his phone would buzz and he'd quickly silence it? Moments when he seemed distant or distracted? Yes. Of course there were. But at the time, I'd explained them away. Late at work. A notification from a news app. Stress from his job. Because I'd trusted him. Because I'd loved him. Because I believed that the man I was building a life with was honest and faithful. 6 weeks after James's arrest, I went to the courthouse for the annulment hearing. In the state of Washington, you can get an annulment if you can prove fraud, and boy, could I prove fraud. James was brought in wearing an orange jumpsuit and handcuffs. His bail had been set at $500,000, which his family couldn't afford, so he'd been in jail since his arrest. He looked terrible, gaunt, hollow-eyed, defeated. When the judge asked if he contested the annulment, he shook his head. No, Your Honor. Mrs. Richardson deserves to be free of me. The judge granted the annulment. Just like that, my marriage was erased. As if it had never existed. Which, in a way, it hadn't. The marriage I'd thought I had, built on love and trust and partnership, had never been real. As I was leaving the courthouse, James called out to me. Emma. Can we talk? Just for a minute. Against my better judgment, I stopped. We stood in the hallway outside the courtroom, a bailiff watching us carefully. I know you hate me, James said. I know you probably never want to see me again. But I need you to know that I'm sorry. Truly, deeply sorry for what I put you through. You deserved so much better. Yes, I agreed. I did. I am going to plead guilty, he continued. My lawyer wants me to fight it, but I can't. I did this. I hurt so many people, my clients, my family, you. I deserve whatever punishment I get. What about Natasha? I asked, surprising myself. Is she standing by you? He laughed bitterly. She left the country the day I was arrested. Switzerland, I think. Turns out when the money dries up, so does the loyalty. She won't return my lawyer's calls. I should have felt vindicated, but I just felt sad. Sad for the naive woman I'd been 6 weeks ago, happily packing for a honeymoon, believing in love and happily ever after. I hope you find happiness, Emma, James said. Real happiness, with someone who deserves you. Someone who won't destroy your trust the way I did. I hope you find redemption, I replied. And I hope the people you hurt find peace. That was the last time I saw James Richardson. He pleaded guilty to multiple counts of fraud and embezzlement, and was sentenced to 12 years in federal prison. He'll serve at least 9 with good behavior. The victims of his scheme, the retirees who'd trusted him with their life savings, the families who'd invested their children's college funds, they got back about 40 cents on the dollar through the court-ordered restitution process. 40 cents on the dollar. Lives destroyed, retirements ruined, all because my ex-husband wanted to impress a woman with yachts and penthouses. It took me a long time to heal. Longer than I expected. I thought I'd bounce back quickly, channel my anger into something productive, move on with my life. But grief doesn't work that way. And yes, it was grief, grief for the relationship I'd thought I had, grief for the future I'd planned, grief for the version of myself who'd been naive enough to trust so completely. I threw myself into work. I took on extra projects, worked late hours, used my job as a marketing director to fill the empty spaces in my life where James used to be. My boss was understanding about the whole situation. The company had actually put out a statement distancing themselves from James and his crimes, since we'd worked for different companies, but moved in similar professional circles. I moved again, to a better apartment in a better neighborhood. I adopted a cat, a scraggly orange rescue I named Phoenix, because we were both starting over from the ashes of our old lives. I started running, something I'd never done before, and discovered that the physical exhaustion helped quiet my racing thoughts. Slowly, painfully, I rebuilt myself. About 8 months after the annulment, something unexpected happened. I was at a coffee shop, working on my laptop, when a man approached my table. "Excuse me, is this seat taken?" I looked up. He was tall, maybe late 30s, with kind eyes and a gentle smile. The coffee shop was crowded, and he was holding a cup in one hand and a book in the other. "No, go ahead," I said, moving my bag off the chair. He sat down and opened his book, and we worked and read in companionable silence for about an hour. Then he got up to leave, paused, and turned back to me. "This might be completely inappropriate," he said, "and if it is, please just say so and I'll disappear forever. But would you like to get dinner sometime? I've been coming to this coffee shop for weeks trying to work up the courage to ask you." I was so surprised I almost laughed. "Weeks?" "Weeks," he confirmed. "I'm not normally this awkward, I promise. I'm Daniel, by the way." "Emma," I said automatically. Then, before I could overthink it, "and yes, I'd like to have dinner." We went to dinner 3 days later. I was nervous. This was my first date since everything had happened with James. But something about Daniel felt safe. Genuine. Over dinner, he told me he was a high school English teacher. He loved his job despite the challenges, believed in the power of literature to change lives, and had a rescue dog named Scout after the character in To Kill a Mockingbird. When he asked about me, I hesitated. Did I tell him about James? About the spectacular implosion of my marriage? About the fact that I was technically still legally married when we met because the annulment had taken time to process? I was recently married, I said finally, deciding on honesty. For 3 days. Then I found out my husband had been running a Ponzi scheme and cheating on me. It was all over the news about 8 months ago. If you want to leave now, I completely understand. Daniel was quiet for a moment, processing. Then, that must have been devastating. I'm so sorry you went through that. You're not running away. He smiled. Emma, we all have pasts. We all have pain. What matters is who we are now and who we are trying to become. You seem like a brave, honest person who's rebuilding after something terrible. That's not a red flag. That's actually pretty remarkable. I felt tears prick my eyes. Thank you for saying that. We talked for hours. He asked about my work, my hobbies, my family. He told me about his divorce 3 years ago, amicable, no kids, they'd simply grown apart. He talked about his students, his passion for teaching, his dream of one day writing a novel. At the end of the night, he walked me to my car. I'd really like to see you again, he said. If you're interested. No pressure. We can take things as slowly as you need. I'd like that, I said. And I meant it. Daniel and I dated for 2 years. Slowly, carefully, building trust brick by brick. He met my family. I met his parents. We took trips together, nothing extravagant, just weekend getaways to the coast or the mountains.